This week's episode is sponsored by Patreon supporter Robert Batchman, who takes us back to the Japanese side of the world of the Transformers with the basics on one of the deadliest Decepticon combiners, LIOKAISER. LIOKAISER was a giant robot formed by the combination of the Decepticon team called the Breast Force. Released exclusively in Japan in 1989, this team's unfortunate name referred to their special gimmick. Each member featured a removable breastplate, which could transform into both a weapon for them to wield and a robotic animal partner called a breast animal. The team consisted of the strategist, Drill Horn, a single-minded drill tank prone to relying too much on his own experience and ignoring the advice of others, partnered with the Rhino breast animal, Horn Breast. Guy Hawk, an aloof MiG-29 jet fighter who could shoot needles of ice, and whose belief that he was the most talented member of the team made him something of a sore loser, partnered to Hawk Breast. The slimy, self-serving spy, Hellbat, a Dassault Rafale jet with the power of hypnosis, despised by the rest of the team for constantly slinking around behind their backs, spreading lies and throwing them under the bus to advance his standing in the ranks. Partnered to the Bat, Komori Breast. Jaguar, a missile buggy who was a model soldier when he had orders to follow, but lacked the ability to act on his own initiative. Partnered to Jaguar Breast. The violent Kill Bison, a Gepard anti-aircraft tank who became restless when he had nothing to destroy, partnered to Bison Breast. And the team leader, F-14 Tomcat jet, Leozak, an ambitious young warrior determined to prove his skill to Decepticon Emperor Deathsaurus, while simultaneously harboring the desire to overthrow him as ruler, partnered to Lion Breast. Deathsaurus himself was also part of the Breast Force, but his toy was much larger than the other members and didn't combine with them to form LIOKAISER. Check out the basics on Deathsaurus to learn more about him. Unlike the other combiners in the original toy line, the Breast Force required almost no extra parts to form LIOKAISER, with all the combiner pieces except the head integrated into their bodies. Though the team's conflicting personalities did mean his components were prone to disagreeing, LIOKAISER was one of the most skilled, intelligent and effective combiners, and possessed the power of invisibility. The Breast Force were prominent characters in the Japanese original animated series Transformers Victory, serving under Deathsaurus in his campaign to steal the energy of Earth. At first, only Leozak, Jaguar, Drillhorn, and Kill Bison were present. Hellbat joined them a little later, his obsequious efforts to impress Deathsaurus and undercut his teammates driving the plots of several episodes. Guy Hawk, meanwhile, wasn't introduced until halfway through the series, when the Breast Force busted him out of prison on the Autobot colony planet Micro. With 6 members now assembled, the Breast Force were prepared to finally combine into LIOKAISER, but Leozak was sick of Hellbat's backstabbing, and so decided to kick him off the team and replace him in their combination with an old subordinate, Death Cobra, an original character created for the cartoon who turned into a helicopter. Hellbat tried to privately convince Death Cobra to turn Leozak's offer down, but Death Cobra refused, and their argument escalated into a firefight that led to Hellbat accidentally shooting his intended replacement dead. Hellbat blamed the Autobots for the deed, thereby securing his place on the Breast Force and as part of LIOKAISER. As LIOKAISER, the Breast Force frequently clashed with Autobot leader Starsaber, and came close to defeating him several times. But they were ultimately bested in a space battle with the feral Autobot Victory Leo, who hurled the combiner into the cannon of the Decepticon's space fortress, which drained LIOKAISER's energy and sent his body hurtling off into space. The Breast Force were also featured in the Victory manga, which notably introduced Leozak's lookalike sister, Lyzak. The Breast Force toys were never sold in America, but in 1992, Leozak, Jaguar, Kill Bison, and Drillhorn were recolored, retooled to remove their breast animals and add new weapons, and released in Europe and Australasia as new characters. The Autobot Rescue Force. 4 bots who weren't given individual names. It was still possible, though obviously not mentioned in their instructions, to combine the figures into an incomplete, armless, headless LIOKAISER. A silly idea that nevertheless wound up entering official canon thanks to a poorly written sticker album from 1993 that claimed the Rescue Force could combine. And the robot, which the album named the Big Rescue Force Robot, even made a cameo in 2014's Transformers Timelines comic book. The actual Breast Force themselves, meanwhile, made the jump to Western Transformers media in the 21st century, with a couple of new toys and media appearances. In 2009, a new figure of Leozak was released through official convention BotCon. It was a recolor of Transformers Energon Starscream, so it lacked a breast animal or the ability to combine. In this form, Leozak appeared in the convention's exclusive comic as part of a Decepticon unit alongside Skyhawk and Hellbat, battling Autobots on the planet Beta 9. In reference to the Breast Force's Japanese origins, the comic depicted Leozak as a bombastic parody of an anime character, who even called out his attack names. The comic ended with Leozak being defeated and captured, but the story continued in the Transformers Collectors Club comic, in which Lyzak took up Leozak's sword and began working for Deathsaurus as his personal assistant in the hopes that he would help her locate and rescue her brother. In 2014, a minifigure of Jaguar was surprisingly released in the Creo building block line. The same year, Hellbat got the spotlight in IDW Publishing's Empire of Stone comic book miniseries, in which he appeared as Decepticon General Gigatron's second-in-command, aiding him in an effort to take control of an army of alien stone soldiers. Believing that the Transformers war had grown pointless, and that killing was all Cybertronians were good for, Hellbat double-crossed Gigatron and took command of the Stone Warriors himself so he could wipe everyone out, but was killed by his commander for his betrayal. The rest of the Breast Force cameoed in IDW's comics a few years later, serving under Deathsaurus, with Death Cobra taking the deceased Hellbat's place on the team. Most notably, a new version of the team was released in the Combiner Wars toy line in 2016, sold together in a box set. This release changed a few of their more violent-sounding names for the American market. It included Drillhorn, Skyhawk, Hellbat, renamed Fellbat, Kill Bison, renamed Iron Bison, and Deathsaurus, renamed Desaurus. Leozak and Jaguar weren't included. Desaurus took their place as LIOKAISER's torso, while the other 4 bots became his limbs, each able to transform into either an arm or a leg, all totally interchangeable, able even to be mixed and matched with other Combiner Wars teams. There were no breast animals, but the set did come with the Minicon Eagle Ion Scythe, who transformed into a weapon for LIOKAISER. These toys would serve as the basis for the Breast Force's designs when they were added to the Earth Wars mobile game in 2020, as the climax of a long-running story arc about Deathsaurus' efforts to create his own combiner. The game reinstated Leozak, based on his BotCon toy, as LIOKAISER's torso, but poor old Jaguar was still missing. Now, despite the moves Western media has made to introduce the Breast Force to a wider audience, there's no denying that the biggest stumbling block is that name. When the Victory cartoon was released on DVD in the US, subtitled into English, the group's name was changed to the only marginally less silly-sounding Chest Force. For Combiner Wars, they were renamed the Destrons, which is just the Japanese name for the Decepticon faction as a whole. If they ever hope to hit it big, this is one team of Decepticons who are going to have to seriously think about rebranding. And those are the basics on the Breast Force. Thanks to Robert for sponsoring this look at a team whose name doesn't do them justice. For more Transformers history and lore from around the world, make sure to subscribe and support the show on Patreon if you can, so you don't miss any new episodes.